to our conversation was just to sort of do a bit of self-reflection on the degree to which faculty in the humanities are using AI. So the Department of English, as Ginny and Lisa knows, had quite a bit of conversation about this in our faculty meetings, and we had a sort of informal survey assessing what people were doing. And so these were some of the results of what we learned in English. One of the questions was, have you explicitly incorporated generative AI into the work of your class? Only 21% said yes. A large majority of 79% said no. So, and that's about 24, 25 people responding. So not a lot of use. And then the question was, well, if you did use it, how did you use it? There's translation exercises building on AI translations. There was using generative AI to make short plays based on different genre conventions and then talking about how they fail or succeed. There was a plan to introduce some exploration for revising writing and brainstorming organization of independent projects, but hadn't been figured out yet. One person said, my undergrad class is packed syllabus that has been very carefully developed over the years to maximize learning. Now I need to rethink from the ground up, articulating experience, right? Many of us are confronting here is a challenge that AI poses to our established expertise and experience in how we've been approaching our teaching. And then finally, one faculty member said that both classes of the semester had concluding sessions that were about generative AI, how it works, and how to think about it. So the situation, next slide, Shana. The situation in FAS is that, of course, we have no general policy regarding AI, and we have all been left to decide for ourselves, essentially. Some programs are, I think, moving towards policies within their own programs or departments. But at the moment, really, CAS just requires that all faculty members have some kind of statement about AI in their course syllabi. So these are some examples of English faculty. I won't read through them, right? But all of these statements are basically including some kind of statement about values, like what is valued in the course. So I grade for your textual curiosity, voice, close analysis, connects readings to issues that matter to you. AI writing tools do not replicate that work. So if you're undisclosed or heavy AI reliance will negatively impact your grade. And a second one, unless otherwise stated, you should not use generative AI tools for any assignment in this course. Every submission should be entirely your own work. A third said, if you use it for brainstorming or feedback on a draft, you must acknowledge and reflect on the help that you've received. So as you can see, a wide variety of statements about AI, or generative AI. Okay, next slide. I'm going to pass it over now to CJ, who did a little bit of reconnaissance work in the history department.
Hello, everyone. So yes, in the very onset of our faculty learning committee conversation, we instituted or implemented a mini survey in the history department just to see where people are, similar to what Tom just discussed in the English department. A lot of the responses, I think there's a lot of resonance across different disciplines that we're all facing together. And I'll just quickly walk through some of the results that we had.
I'm going to refresh, CJ. I think the slide is, oh, there we go.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. So, yes, so just a short open-ended questionnaire. We asked if any of the faculty had used any generative AI tools before. Here you can see there's quite a wide array of different tools that people have tried to various degrees and in different contexts. Of course, ChatGPT reigns supreme, but I was surprised by some of the other tools that people have been using, more specialized like Transcribus, and then some people working with more visual tools as well. Next slide, please. The other questions that we have, I think perhaps the next slide. Yes, wonderful. Thank you. So the other open-ended questions that we posed were either related to teaching or to research. And in the teaching side, there was a very broad spectrum of responses in terms of whether you have integrated generative AI tools or pedagogy within your classroom. How, if at all, have you engaged with the greater challenges that generative AI have posed to the classroom? And so we had a wide spectrum from no changes at all and either a degree of defiance or resignation, as in, what can I possibly do? Or no, I absolutely refuse to make any compromises in my classroom on the one end, to more curious, AI curious, no, I have not quite integrated any AI tools or demonstrations in my classroom, but I'd be curious about how, and I would like to learn how other people have done this, to a very cautious and conscientious degree of engagement. So things like instructional demonstrations, of which some of our colleagues will discuss later on in this presentation, about showing exactly, oh, this is how a large language model operates, and these are the challenges, these are the limitations, and these are the potentials of what this may yield in a learning environment. On the cautious, slightly skeptical side, there was a lot, I think the preponderance of respondents in the history department have been trying to find ways to AI proof, however. So there's falling back on ye old methods of pop quizzes, in-class writing assignments, handwritten blue book exams, oral exams, ways to essentially hack the AI challenge. And even in that respect, there's a lot of conversation and a sense of bewilderment and hopes of greater exchange of how do we better approach this challenge that we all face right now. And next, yes. On the research side, there was a little bit less conversation. So some faculty have experimented a little bit with using generative AI tools in research. So there's transcription, translation, processing data, whether for demography or cartography or textual analysis, formatting bibliographies and proofreading on the writing side. I know personally, anecdotally, from other departments that, or other universities, that a lot of the more quantitative political economy and demography people have been relying more heavily on generative AI tools than my colleagues here at NYU. But when we go to the final question that we posed to the history department about what kind of tools, functions, resources, guidelines would you like, overwhelmingly, I think the key concerns were on the pedagogical side. So in terms of adapting how we engage in the classroom. So, and this is something that, again, we will go further into in this presentation, but I think the greatest demand, the greatest request and desire was for an ongoing conversation. So an open forum where people can share ideas, share experiences, share concerns, and problem shoot together. There are, of course, the a lot of concerns that came up later on in a faculty meeting where we started opening these conversations after the survey, where things that did not quite surface in the survey itself got a fair airing. And a lot of these had to do with labor concerns in terms of the burden of adjustment to an AI proof or AI engaged classroom might fall overwhelmingly on graduate students, graduate TFs, and that this might cause problems with contract terms with the graduate assistants. And then there were, of course, people who always want to register. They're overwhelming, what is it? Um, yes, register their concerns about the environmental impact and say human rights and censorship concerns in their refusal, their abstention from any kinds of AI engagement. But again, to sum up, the greatest desire was just to keep an open forum for discussion.